Be My Baby from the Ronettes from 1963 is a great example of so many things coming together that we talk about in the book, having to do with the Brill Building songwriters. In this case, the songwriters involved are Phil Spector, Ellie Greenwich, and Jeff Barry. Phil Spector, the producer, and so we talk about the rise of the producer here. And then the idea that the girl groups in many ways were not exactly faceless entities, but they were not so much in control of what was going on in their own music. It was people like Phil Spector producing and the songwriters who were really making a lot of the big musical decisions about what would happen, the arrangers, the studio musicians who were in the who were playing it, and not so much the singers who basically were doing what they were told in a lot of kinds of ways. Very different from what we'd seen before in the second half of the 1950s, where people like Jerry Lee Lewis, Elvis Presley, Chuck Berry, Little Richard were a lot more in control of what was going on with their music and doing some of it, in some cases doing some of their own writing, Buddy Holly, the Everly Brothers. So the Ronettes, a fantastic group with the lead vocals of Ronnie Spector, who would later become Phil's wife, but at this point was just the lead singer for the Ronettes. And the song itself is in a contrasting verse-chorus form, which means we've got the verse-chorus form like we're familiar with seeing in the simple verse choruses, but the chorus is different musical material. So now if you're going to learn this tune to play it, you've got to learn how to play both the verse and the chorus. It's different music each time, and so there's a contrast there between those two things. It starts out with a great sort of characteristic drum intro played by studio musician, LA studio musician Hal Blaine, a member of a group called the Wrecking Crew, who played a bunch of sort of top-notch young studio musicians who played on a lot of recordings during the 1960s in Los Angeles. In fact, you would be surprised if you looked up a list of all the different records they played on, not just rock either. And Hal Blaine here sort of leading that crew with that drum intro, and then we get the verse, which seems to build until we get to the chorus, where we really get the chorus in a song like this, a contrasting verse chorus. The chorus really is the focal point of the tune. It's what you remember. When you think about Be My Baby, you think of that chorus and what happens there. So the way the song is designed to go is to get the chorus heard as many times as possible, but you've got to have these other elements of the song to kind of create contrast, so each time the chorus comes back, it's somewhat fresh. So we get an introduction, a verse, then that beautiful chorus, a second verse, then the chorus, then an instrumental verse where the melody is played. It's a little bit shortened. It's not as long as the other verses, but the melody is played in the strings. And then the build up to the chorus comes. You get the chorus again. At about a little after 2 minutes into the song, it stops, and we get the drum introduction again, a kind of a re-beginning of the song. And then instead of getting any more verses, you just get the chorus, the big sound. Speaking of that big sound, this is maybe the best example to talk about Phil Spector and the wall of sound. The idea that this is the biggest sound you can get coming out of a little speaker in the dashboard of your car. I mean, that's really what they were shooting for. In those days, you didn't have big stereo systems, or most people didn't have big stereo systems, this kind of thing. You heard the music from a transistor radio, you heard it in your car, you heard it from a tabletop radio, something like that. And so the Phil Spector wall of sound was to get the biggest possible sound out of this sort of monophonic arrangement. And of course, he was able to achieve tremendous success with this. He became a legendary performer at that moment, the first half of the 1960s, for achieving this wall of sound. So there you have it, Be My Baby from the Ronettes.